Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Enrico.
Vader, he's big, but he's stupid.
Joe Giammatteo.
I think Mankind is wearing that Michael Jordan cologne.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on January 6th, 1997, the first Raw of 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany, New York, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready, but I just want to apologize. My voice might get a little raspy tonight. I did come down with the COVID. So it might get a little bit hacking or raspy here, but we must march on.
Our 5G speeds have never been better.
Yeah, I can tell. It's actually
blazing.
Your signal is very clear and blazing.
Warp speed.
It's great to be activated, isn't it?
It is. It is. But I am ready.
Joey?
Oh, I'm ready.
Good, because let's get into it. Oh, God, we're starting with a close-up of Vader. 97, starting with a close-up of Vader right up in the mush. Monstrous. Now, honestly, it wasn't all that intimidating. I was waiting for him to run away, really. This was a promo that Vader was cutting for us to kick off our episode of Raw. Also, Shotgun Saturday Night had debuted, and of course, it was sexy. Ahmed Johnson took the fight against the Nation of Domination to the streets.
That'll be the only time we see that footage tonight.
The only time. Because we have something better to look at. Marlena getting exposed. And a shot of Bob Backlund freaking out because Marlena was getting exposed. All this and more on Monday Night Raw. And now, gentlemen, our first match of the year. Mankind defeats Owen Hart by pinfall in 7 minutes and 8 seconds. Owen was looking great here at the start with Clarence Mason holding Owen's slammy, as well as with Owen wearing one of the tag team championship belts. But I have to note, and I hate to say it, High Energy is officially out of date and no longer appropriate. It's like a switch has been flipped going into 97. It now sounds 15 years out of date, even though it's actually probably only like 6 or 7.
Yeah, it needs to go.
Yeah, I hate to say it, too. I mean, it did spend some time as my ringtone on my phone.
But then you figured in 2022, it was time to go.
January 6th, 2022 is when you
switched your ringtone. What did you switch it to? Back to?
Oh, just like a generic ringtone. Really what the problem was is every time somebody called me and High Energy would start pumping in my pocket, I would have to beat the broads off with a stick.
Yeah.
So it was a hazard.
Makes sense.
We got a great visual of Mankind sitting in the ring and rocking with a nice lighting scheme behind him. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but it made it look like he was alone in a cell somewhere in a nut house. It was like a perfect angle, perfect lighting. Great touch there. Speaking of great touches, the bell rings, Mankind charges Owen, and Owen immediately reverses the charge into a belly-to-back suplex. That looked great. Vince told us to expect the official to allow some more latitude in a lack of rules in this match, so I guess the official here, Mike Chioda, shouldn't even have been there. We also got the hint that there's trouble in paradise between the Bulldog and Owen, which may or may not be exacerbated in the Royal Rumble. I loved Owen biting the mandible claw hand when Mankind tried to apply it. Mankind was looking especially disheveled here. It's like he shaved some fresh patches into his head for the new year. And that whole lack of rules thing became pretty clear here when Owen hit Mankind with Owen's tag belt and nothing came of it. Jerry Lawler commented that Jose Lothario's heart was clogged with refried beans and enchiladas.
Whew.
Yeah. Among other things. I mean, by just the high points.
Yeah, that was
beans.
just one of the things he brought up.
Yeah.
While bringing up multiple Mexican dishes.
Yeah. All of which contributing to full cardiac arrest and a 62-pound camera. That whole lack of rules thing continued to be a good part of this match, as in a large amount of time. There were a couple weapons used, a lot of time spent outside the ring. We broke to commercial and came back to replays of the extreme action. I loved Owen Hart throwing off the mandible claw to reverse into an enziguri. Mankind did end up hitting a quick pile driver out of nowhere, though, for the pin and the 3 count, and that was it for this match. Ryan, our show opener here had much more sports entertainment than it did wrestling, which for Mankind is a positive, but for Owen Hart it was a negative. I feel like the extreme stuff outside of the rules definitely played up Mankind's strengths, but Owen wasn't really able to shine here like we know he can, aside from maybe being glorified enhancement talent. What did you think of this?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Owen was being used as glorified enhancement talent, but unfortunately, that is going to be Owen's job for quite a while. But I thought it was a strong match. It could have done with a little more lead up. You know, Owen Hart, we said he's being used as a glorified jobber, but he's still a pretty prominent player in the WWF. So I think if they just would have warned us at least a week in advance about this match, it maybe would have had a little bit more build up to it. But Vince at the beginning reminds us that Owen is one half of the tag team champs, and I completely forgot about that because when was the last time we saw them in a tag team match? I don't know. But the match starts and it wasn't conventional, and that certainly doesn't play to Owen's strengths, but he still did a fantastic job of selling for Mankind here. The ref really wasn't needed. They spent very little time in the ring. When they did, they were slamming each other in corner to corner, and then someone would roll out and there would be more antics outside. And yeah, it couldn't have been more clear once Owen smacked Mankind with a belt right in front of the ref, and he did nothing. And that was after they were out there for about a minute. So they should have just maybe made it a no DQ match and just got it over with. And then at least you would have had an excuse for it. But I'm not going to complain that much about it, though, because it was entertaining. I also loved when when Mankind smacked Owen over the head with that ice tub and the crowd started chanting ECW. So it was a very ECW feeling match. And to be honest, a very fitting way to start off 97, I thought.
Yeah, I agree on the entertainment factor. I thought this was very entertaining. And I agree with you, Ryan. I think maybe they should have just had this be a no DQ match and given them a little bit more time. I think the only thing that I did not like is it seemed like the finish was very rushed. It was almost like someone said, hey, it's time to go home. And they were just like, boom, 1, 2, 3. And it was over. So that part kind of sucked. But the rest of it I thought it was pretty entertaining. The stuff they were doing on the outside was great. Owen kind of threw Mankind on that metal barrier that looked extremely painful, as it always does with Mick Foley and the metal barriers. Then Owen whips him with the tag team belt. So, you know, it was nice to see that stuff on the outside. And it's actually kind of nice to see, I mean, even though we did forget that they are tag team champions, it's kind of nice to see Owen in a singles match with, I believe, no manager. Right? There was no one with him.
I thought I saw Clarence down there.
Was Clarence there?
Mason was down there at the start, but I mean, he had no real purpose in the match itself.
Yeah, he obviously was not a distraction, which is nice. So yeah, I liked seeing Owen in a singles match here.
Yeah, I do kind of wish it would have been a little bit longer. You're right. It feels like maybe there would have been more opportunity for Owen to get some more of his shit in, I should say. But we can't dick around with that. We have to go backstage to Shawn Michaels. Jose fucking Lothario.
He's back.
They didn't leave him in San Antonio.
Not only is he back,
but he's reproduced. Somebody fed that fucker after midnight. His son Peter Lothario is here with them in the locker room. Good God. Jose says some stuff here. I couldn't understand it. Peter said some stuff. I understood that, and it was terrible.
Wow.
Is he even part of the business at all besides this one-off?
That is what I wondered.
Okay. Well,
I did not wonder. I just wanted it to be over.
He looked a bit small if he is. He looked, he wasn't jacked or anything.
Well, he's definitely going to become part of the business later. We'll get to that. And when it's Shawn's turn here, he doesn't even look at the camera until the camera moves around and stands directly in front of him. Shawn cuts a decent enough promo and does confirm that he will be present at commentary for Bret Hart's match against Vader later on tonight. Now we're going to move away from that to take a look at the debut of Shotgun Saturday Night and Ahmed Johnson and Crush in the ring. The Nation demolished Ahmed Johnson in the ring, but then Ahmed took it outside and gave a Nation stooge a really fucking dangerous-looking attempt at a Pearl River plunge on top of a parked car.
Second time we've seen that.
That fucking jobber was lucky to not end up with oddly positioned legs after that. And then Mother Smucker and Sister Angelica, the Flying Nuns. A tag team here who aren't women or nuns
Mother
at all.
Smucker.
Apparently.
I mean, have you ever heard a more Bruce Pritchard thing than Mother Smucker?
Behold the Sisters of Love.
God.
These were a much worse version of Friar Ferguson, is how I put it. They were taking on the Godwins in tag team action, and then Brother Love managed to show up. He managed the Nuns here. He interfered. He hit Phineas Godwin with some kind of thin signature book or something. I'm not sure. The Nuns got the win, and Brother Love dubbed the Nuns the Sisters of Love. And I died a little inside. And then the Roseanne theme music started to play, and I died a little more. But before we go to that, Ryan, what did you have on Shawn Michaels backstage and more footage from the debut of Shotgun Saturday Night?
Well, I mean, the Shawn Michaels promo was kind of same Shawn Michaels promo we've been getting for a little while now. Unfortunately, we do find out Jose Lothario is back at his side, and there is now 2 Lotharios. So we didn't get our wish. We were even punished for wanting it. We got 2 of them. The Shotgun Saturday Night thing was neat to see. I thought it looked like a pretty entertaining show, definitely with a little bit more edge to it. One thing that you missed, Bartlett, and I rewound it to confirm it, but during the Crush Ahmed Johnson match when everyone came in and interrupted, did you notice a D'Lo Brown in the ring?
Oh, no, I didn't.
D'Lo is the stooge that got smashed on the car, I think.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it was D'Lo, yeah.
Yep.
Introduction to D'Lo Brown here, so that was the one thing that I did like. Mother Schmucker and Sister Angelica was not one of the things that I love to see here. So, again, hit and miss.
Yeah, I mean, not only have we not gotten rid of Jose Lothario here in 97, as we go into 97, we now have his son Pete in this terrible interview that we talked about already. Yeah, the D'Lo Brown thing is, I mean, we all recognize D'Lo, but they never really said who it was. They just kind of said, oh, there's some new members of the Nation. So I don't know, that was kind of disappointing. I wish we would have had a more formal introduction of these new members, but maybe we'll get that later. And then we have the Flying Nuns. I mean, we just started 1997, fresh new year, and we already get a new horrible gimmick.
And Vince warns us that we might see them on Raw sometime.
Yeah.
Well, one good turn deserves another. Speaking of terrible tag team gimmicks, let's go to our first Monday Night Raw tag team match. Furnas and LaFon defeat Fake Razor and Fake Diesel by pinfall in 9 minutes and 17 seconds. And in what at first was a pleasant surprise, the Honky Tonk Man joined commentary for this match, which I was sure was going to be a barn burner. Fake Razor and Fake Diesel got a ton of pyro. And then Furnas and LaFon came out. I'm pretty sure either their entrance music got changed or maybe the cock edited the original stuff out. Either way, it no longer fits them. I distinctly remember commenting on their music as being kind of like a generic heavy metal chugging riff that just like felt right for a serious tag team. This was not that. Vince states that you won't find a better tag team in the WWF, and that's a pretty accurate statement on a lot of different levels.
You won't find another tag team in the WWF.
It was awkward from the start. LaFon and Fake Diesel weren't working well. And then Fake Razor, well, what's the point of repeating myself for the umpteenth time on how terrible Fake Razor is? We really didn't get too far into this, and it was already just completely unbearable. And I don't just mean the ring action. Commentary was unbearable as well. It sounded like they were just as bored sitting there as I was. We even got a split-screen view of commentary twiddling their thumbs while this match was going on. Jerry Lawler said he'd like to hear Ahmed Johnson try to say Mother Smucker 3 times fast, and I popped. I don't often say this, but thankfully we broke to commercial, and this commercial was for the Royal Rumble, January 19th. No additional new information there. You could tell that the crowd noise was being pumped in on this one because nobody was on their feet. Nobody was moving. The crowd was sitting there staring into space, much like myself during this match. And here's where I eventually had to note that the bloom is definitely off the rose on Honky Tonk Man. He was fucking terrible on commentary. Jerry Lawler, as a matter of fact, was probably the only moderately entertaining person in this whole scenario, and even then, not very much. Phil LaFon gave us a textbook suplex on Fake Razor. That looked nice, at least. And then finally, Furnas and LaFon gave us a tag chain finisher of an elevated clothesline combined with a rollover pin to get the win. Thank Christ this was over. Joe, what did you think of the fake tag team smearing figurative shit all over the real tag team here?
Well, I guess it's nice to see Furnas and LaFon again, but, you know, we get them against Fake Diesel and Fake Razor, and I wanted to fast forward this so bad, but I did not. I did watch it just to see Furnas and LaFon work a little bit. I think for them, I think my opinion on them, now that we've seen them a few times now, I think they're really good workers. They're really good wrestlers, but I feel like maybe they're just, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 years past their prime at this point.
Yeah.
Based on some of the stuff I read, they worked in Japan for several years, and I think that's maybe where they spent their prime years. But I don't know. I mean, I enjoy watching them, but this is fucking terrible to go into 97 and still have this insulting gimmick still happening and just have it still be taken so seriously. I just don't understand any of it.
And that's kind of where I fall on it too. Doug and Philip aren't bad wrestlers, but I can't believe this many months into this and we still have to tolerate Fake Diesel and Fake Razor on Monday Night Raw. It's fucking disgraceful. If I have to try and search for something, at the beginning, Glenn Jacobs as Fake Diesel at least shows off his power. I think it was Doug. He grabs from the mat around his neck and just lifts him up into the sky. So I'll give him credit for that. That looked impressive. But the wrestling from Fake Diesel and Fake Razor, especially Fake Razor, as we've pointed out before, are really bad. And it is a shame because we're wasting Doug and Philip here because they do look good in the ring. Their moves look pretty sharp and crisp. Joe, I agree with you. They maybe are a little bit past their prime, but it's clear these guys know what they're doing and they're being wasted against 2 jokes. Vince tells us in commentary that Vader will be taking on Bret Hart without Jim Cornette. And Joe, I think you told us a couple weeks ago in the news that was going to be happening soon, right?
Yeah.
So that was something to look forward to. But yeah, there's not much more to add about this. Looking at the time, we're probably going to run a bit short because we have a couple matches like this one where there's just not a whole bunch to talk about.
You just want to fast forward through.
Yeah, you just want to fast forward. I mean, at least the first match was entertaining. This one, maybe put these two tag team guys against a real tag team, and not a fucking slap in the face to all of its viewers, and we could actually watch something. But unfortunately, this is what we've been dealt.
Yeah, I can't help but think what kind of a match we would get with these guys versus the tag champs, the Bulldog and Owen Hart, or even, I mean, if we're fantasy booking this, even the Smoking Guns before the heel turn. They were a solid enough tag team, a serious enough tag team to where that could have been probably pretty entertaining.
Well, and you mentioned it earlier, Bartlett, this crowd, I've never heard a more dead crowd on TV. And you'd think that these idiots would see this and say, okay, we're done with it. We'll pretend it never happened. But no, it's going to continue.
Well, I mean, even Vince must have been bored because he gave one of his most delayed. He got him. No, he didn't. Like the two people were on their feet before he said it. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
Well, I had that note about we got to see them twiddling their thumbs at commentary. I really wasn't exaggerating too much with that. We got a split screen during this match where, on the left-hand side of the screen, the boring-ass match was happening. And on the right-hand side of the screen, we had all three people at commentary just kind of sitting there, existing, making small talk, while the match was, or the commentary equivalent of small talk. Zero engagement or investment in the play, calling the play. None of it. Just, they didn't give a shit. And nobody else did either. But it's like you say, when will they just realize? Take a look around. How did you not realize that nobody was giving a shit?
Is it just sheer ego that he refuses to accept that this is a failure and a dumb idea?
Yeah, it had to be. I mean, especially when you think about all the money that he's blowing on it with pyro and all the other shit.
Yeah. Well, it's that IP. He went and had the court case for the IP, right?
And forcing viewers to change the channel. Is it worth it?
Well, apparently. Because, yeah, you're right. This is a point where I probably would have changed the channel. It's a great call, Ryan, because that's something that we should probably keep in mind moving forward. We're still in the 83 weeks, right?
Oh, yeah. We're deep in the 83 weeks right now.
I mean, it's still a legitimate concern for WWF viewership, whether or not we're changing the channel. So that right there, that would have been it. Let's go to some things that are a little more positive. Two things in particular, actually, that we'll get to here in a second. A view backstage of Bret the Hitman Hart first. He won't get to say anything. He's going to stare at the camera for a minute and look bitter. Then we got the replay of that crazy finish from our last episode, Goldust wiping out Mark Marrow and Marlena while Marrow was carrying Marlena.
Apparently Marlena's fine now.
Oh, yeah. Well, her legs were fine. Her legs weren't all akimbo, so... Next week, there will be a tag team match. Goldust and the Wild Man Mark Marrow. What? Tag team okay. Versus Jerry Lawler and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I am already pretty down on that, despite my enjoyment of a couple of these guys. But now those two things I referenced earlier. Footage. We got more footage from Shotgun Saturday Night. The Sultan had been taking on Goldust, and in the match there, the Sultan had Goldust in the camel clutch, and in order to get the Sultan to release Goldust, Marlena gets up on the apron and flashes the Sultan, causing him to release it. Bob Backlund was there. Bob lost his shit over it. The Sultan lost his shit over it. It was at this point that I noticed Shotgun Saturday Night was being billed on the screen as being filmed at the Mirage nightclub. And between being billed at a nightclub and all of the references to sexiness earlier and then Marlena flashing, I had to look into this just a little bit because I was like, what are the chances, right? That there might be some kind of photography available to really evaluate the quality of the distraction there, maybe. Inquiring minds want to know what might be gleaned from this episode. What I did find out about Marlena specifically was that she had pasties on.
That was kind of what I thought.
Yeah, well, the nipple is what makes things indecent, not the large fake breasts being on full display. It's the nipple that's sinful. But with the angle of the camera, they deliberately wanted the viewers at home to believe Marlena had flashed the Sultan in the crowd, and they did a great job of it. I mean, there was people lined up on the apron on the opposite side of the ring that popped hard whenever she did it. People all over just like went crazy for it. Some of the other just teeny little factoids that I found out in my miniature rabbit hole. Ryan, you already mentioned, or both of you actually already mentioned, that guy that Ahmed Johnson almost fucking murdered on top of the car was D'Lo Brown. I'm not sure if you guys knew this or not, but the Sisters of Love, those are the Headbangers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be coming in as the Headbangers not too long.
In like 2 weeks, kind of like Friar Ferguson. It's not going to last very long.
Yeah. The Catholic Church will get all anxious about the Sisters of Love at the Mirage nightclub, where there may or may not be nipples on display.
Sexy.
This one's a little more obscure, but I just thought it was an interesting factoid. One of the lower card matches here for Shotgun Saturday Night was Christopher Daniels versus Taka Michinoku.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean, nothing earth-shattering, but just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Taka is going to be a guy that we're going to see like every fucking week on Raw at some point.
Yeah. But back in the show here, things continued to be mediocre with Backlund flipping out. Then we went back to Bret Hart backstage. Bret cuts a promo on Shawn Michaels and Vader, hoping that Shawn sticks his nose into Bret's match, and then calling Vader big and stupid before, which I loved, before getting cut off by Psycho Sid's music mid-sentence, which obviously pissed Bret off because he started to say, and then just shook his head and walked off the set. We broke to commercial, more from George and Adam. It was lame. And we came back to Sid entering the ring for an interview with Jim Ross. Sid's pyro continues to look badass. I had a flashback to Joe. Was that last week? Thank you, my man.
Yeah.
He didn't say that here, but I was waiting for it. Sid looked great here, too, responding to the crowd, and Jim Ross gave an appropriately prompting question about the upcoming match with Shawn Michaels. Sid said he considers the ring the dying field. Hit or be hidden, kick or be kickin'. The day Sid was born, he was born the man, and Shawn Michaels can never have that claim. It doesn't make any fucking sense, and I love it. Sid's music continued to play throughout this up until it was replaced by Shawn Michaels' music. Shawn strutting down to the ring with Jose fucking Lothario. And Shawn was wearing what looked like a black robe with nothing underneath it, because, of course, that was for Shawn to strip out of. And this time he did it standing on the commentary table, shoving his dick into Vince McMahon's face, and Vince loved it. It was
Give
sexy.
me more. Give me more.
The most resilient. Sid loved it too. He continued to laugh and giggle up there in the ring, saying that he would not be responsible for what he was about to do. And Shawn's stripper music continued as we broke to commercial and ended this segment. Joe, there was a lot going on here between Shotgun Saturday Night and Sid's interview. What did you think of it?
Sure, yeah, I'll go back to the Shotgun Sexy Saturday Night where Marlena decided to dump them out. And I mean, if you're trying to be edgy, which that's clearly what this show is trying to do, this late night Saturday show, that's the way to do it, especially in the early days of the internet. Because if I did not see Shotgun Saturday Night and I watch this clip, I'm going to be going into a search engine and I will be typing Marlena Shotgun Saturday Night to see those angles and see those pasties.
Yeah.
Because, clearly with the camera angle, you could only see her back, her bare back, pretty much. So I would like to see more detail on the internet, and that's what I would be doing. So, it is getting into that edgy territory that they're trying to get into, which is good. Bret Hart's interview I thought was pretty good as well, calling Vader stupid. I love how Bret always has to throw in a dig at Shawn Michaels now, like moving forward. No matter who he's talking about, he's going to talk about Shawn Michaels, and it's fantastic. Another terrible, unfunny George and Adam commercial. Nobody cares. For the Sid interview with Jim Ross, once again, Sid's music is playing during the entire fucking interview. I don't know who made the decision to do this, but it's pretty bad. But For me, these babyface Sid interviews, they're just kind of running together. They're not very good. They have no substance. It's just some roided out, oiled up freak spewing complete nonsense. I guess it picks up a little bit when Shawn's music hits. This is something, these music interruptions is something that's going to be used a lot in the Attitude Era. We saw it last week with The Undertaker's music interrupting Sid, and now this week Shawn's music interrupts Sid. So that's probably something we should get used to, right?
Starting with the Shotgun Saturday Night, yeah, they're definitely getting over on the edginess of Shotgun Saturday Night. They definitely wanted us to believe she flashed everyone, and Joe, you're right. If it's 1997, we're waiting 3 minutes for that single image to load as it slowly scans and comes into focus like Janeway on the comic book guys on The Simpsons. But good job on pushing the adult nature of Shotgun Saturday Night. Bret Hart's promo, I enjoyed almost the whole thing. What he was saying about Vader, his continuing digs at Shawn Michaels, good job. And I did love how pissed off he got at the end when he got cut off by the music. And then with Sid, the only thing I can come up with is that the decision to play the music is to try and drown out his nonsense. That's the only thing I could think of, because there's no one else during their promo that we blare their intro music during the entire thing except for Sid. So that's a conscious decision. Shawn Michaels then comes down in this black trench coat and then gives Vince McMahon a personal striptease. And Vince was done for the night.
Whoa.
Took Vince back to the champagne room.
Oh, showed him some pasties. Yeah. So the only thing that I want to point out is that while I do agree with you both on the whole music playing thing, at least they turned the volume down this time.
It wasn't quite as loud this time, right?
And I get what you're saying about Sid, but sometimes, like, a great example is Awatamela, the greatest lion of Africa and ever. Every once in a while, he'll string together just the right kind of nonsense, and it's fucking amazing.
Even that isn't really coherent. It's just funny.
It's amazing.
There's just a lot of similarities to The Ultimate Warrior when it comes to Sid.
Mm-hmm.
The interviews that make no sense, just the yelling. He doesn't really have the high energy that Warrior had, but his matches are not very good quality. I mean, so there's definitely a lot of similarities, I think, between the two.
Yeah, I can see it. I want to say maybe Sid isn't as batshit insane in real life, though, whereas the Warrior was just as insane in real life.
Yeah. But I guess as far as like how over he is with the crowd currently is, to me, it's pretty similar to the Warrior 10 years before this.
I loved the Warrior when I was young,
before
I got old and actually cared about how they wrestled.
Things like standards and quality.
Right. When all I cared about was the spectacle.
Yeah.
The running down the entryway and shaking the ropes. That was always my favorite part.
Exactly. When you're 6 years old, what the fuck else do you care about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that wasn't a proper headlock. Not at 6.
Well, gentlemen, I am looking forward to hearing what you think about our final match of the night. Vader defeats Bret Hart by pinfall in 8 minutes and 41 seconds. And of course, we're going to start this off with Shawn accusing Bret Hart of drawing first blood and just being jealous. Fucking pissy and bitchy, and I don't know. So Shawn gets on my nerves with this stuff. Maybe it's just because it's such a great angle. Maybe he's just really working it. Or maybe he's that much of a bitch in real life at this time. Who knows? And then Vader, sans Cornette, came out. Cornette apparently got his ass handed to him by The Undertaker on Superstars yesterday. Jim Ross on commentary for that, noting the girth of Cornette before Cornette took the Tombstone Piledriver, and Vince notes sarcastically that Jim Ross is the best play-by-play man in the business. In the match, Bret throws Vader into the ring stairs. That was surprising. And on commentary, Vince continued to fillet Shawn Michaels. That was not surprising. Shawn is, of course, the victim here, and he will be cheating to win from now on. He just lays it out there for us. In the ring, it's obvious that Vader is either too big and slow to have a good match with Bret, or he's just being lazy, not really sure which, not sure that it really matters which. We spent a ton of time in split screen, Shawn and Vince both more or less focusing on Bret Hart and Bret's chances in the Royal Rumble than Bret's claims of being robbed in the Iron Man match. We got a view of Stone Cold Steve Austin backstage watching the match before breaking to commercial. This was the Starburst Fruit Twist Rewind. I remember these commercials very clearly, very 90s. And the rewind is going to be footage of Ahmed almost ruining someone's career on top of a car.
Third time.
We come back from commercial to learn that Vader has apparently been turning it on during the break. I'd love to see what that looks like, but we don't get the chance to. Shawn continues to be a petty bitch on commentary, inferring that Bret is a terrible person on the road once again. Some more of those personal digs. In the ring, Bret was having a hard time directing Vader and keeping things on track. None of the ring action looked good, and that's painful to say for a Bret Hart match. This kind of, at the time I didn't take it as seriously as you did, Ryan, but I kind of feel about this match the same way that you felt about Bret Hart in there with Fake Razor, I think. The run-ins that happened, they did not look good either. So first, Sid came out and got the cameraman, but that was kind of poorly timed because as he did that, apparently Vader and Bret were on the outside using the ring stairs. Then Steve Austin was out of nowhere, giving Bret a stunner on the entryway. This whole thing was just really disjointed, and there wasn't a clear sequence of events to keep the story going. And by that, I mean in terms of production. There wasn't, camera angle 1, 2, 3, and 4 showing these different scenes in sequential order to keep you clued in on what's happening in the various, spots of the wrestling area. It was almost like somebody had copied and pasted footage together to try to get all of this shit in, as opposed to just filming it the right way the first time. Vader does capitalize on that Stone Cold Stunner, though. He drags Bret back to the ring, sets Bret up for a Vader bomb, hits it, gets the pin, and the 3 count for the victory. Shawn Michaels continued to be snarky on commentary after the match was over. The crowd continued to be sitting on their hands. Then we got a view of backstage. Sid was there with Jose Lothario's son, Pete Lothario, and the kid isn't selling shit with what Sid was working with him until Sid plants him in a non-gimmicked table. My God, that table was solid. Shawn Michaels goes running backstage to try to help. There was no need for that there because the superhero Aldo Montoya was on the scene wearing jeans and
super jobber.
Yeah, a blazer or some kind of thing along with his jockstrap mask. Savio Vega was there too. Bart Gunn was there. And Jose Lothario's son, Peter Lothario, has officially been destroyed. We got a slow motion replay of that, complete with slow-mo voice action from Sid, yes, which I thought was great. Just the slow going up into the power bomb and that low pitched as he slammed Peter Lothario.
Skipped him off the top.
He did skip him right across that surface.
It was like watching one of those old martial arts movies from the 80s.
We ended with the slow-mo replay and faded to black. So yeah, like I said, I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this, especially Ryan. Like I said, given how upset you've been in the past at some of the crappy circumstances that Bret Hart's been thrown into, what did you think of this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Yeah, it was shit. I mean, not only am I upset about how they've been treating Bret Hart, my lowlight of 96, Vader, is involved with doing said disgraceful actions towards Bret Hart in this match. At the very beginning, I thought maybe things were going to go okay when Vader took that Irish whip into the ring stairs. I was surprised by that, but it pretty much falls apart from that point on. There's not much more to say. It was a boring match. Bret Hart tried his ass off here, but Vader just fucking dogging him the whole time, giving him nothing, giving him absolutely nothing. And then we have Shawn Michaels just continuing with his barbs the entire time. At one point, he continues to break kayfabe like he likes to do. And I wonder if Vince was like poking him beside the table, well, poking him in a different way at this point.
Yeah.
But when Sid came down and got the camera guy, I was a little confused, but I was happy to see where that led to later. And then way too many people getting involved at the end here. So not only do we have Vader shitting up the place with his ring action, we get way too many distractions. The shit with Stone Cold. This is probably the first time that I know he's on this ongoing feud with Bret Hart, but it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the right spot for it. And then on top of this humiliation, Vader gets a pin. He lands his finisher and then wins 1, 2, 3 on Bret Hart. Jesus fucking Christ, Vader. Thankfully, though, we got this shit at the end with Sid. He picks up Pete by the throat and then power bombs him into that non-gimmick table. And I fucking popped my ass off when he his back just crushed into it. He skipped off. The table did nothing. It looked like one of those fucking tables from the 1960s made out of fucking pure steel. It did nothing. Give. It just broke his back. Zero give. Wasn't gimmicked in the least. And I fucking loved it. Fuck you, Pete.
By God.
So vicious.
Well, it's all about attitude. Vince kept saying that. That was our first little
hint,
bit of attitude there. So that was nice to hear. A lot of ups and downs here, like you guys already said, with a lot of this stuff. One of the things I liked, which had nothing to do with the match, really, it kind of helped lead into the match, was that Superstars clip that they showed of Undertaker tombstoning Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
With JR on commentary. I thought that was fantastic. What a way to kind of write off Jim Cornette from being a manager. But fuck, it happened on Superstars, what a shame.
At least they showed us.
Yeah, at least they showed us, which was great. So, yeah, Bartlett, you mentioned the word disjointed at one point during this, and I feel like that's what's going to happen a lot when you have a storyline with like 5 or 6 different guys at the same time. I mean, we have Shawn Michaels on commentary. We have Bret Hart and Vader in the match. We have Sid and Stone Cold Steve Austin interfering. And, we learned last week that The Undertaker is also in the mix here. Although we didn't get him tonight, but he's in the mix.
And Pete Lothario.
And Pete Lothario. So there's just a lot going on here. And yeah, we can't lose the fact that fucking Bret Hart just ate a pin to Vader. I mean, that is just... That is just pathetic. Vader at this point, like this was, it's probably been like this for a while now, but this to me, it's just like glaringly obvious that he has reached that Yoko level where he can no longer do singles matches. Like he can't do it, should not do it. He is slow, out of shape, way past his prime. It's over for Vader. But yet we have Bret Hart eating a pin to him here. I mean, I know there's interference, but still, what the hell? I don't know. That was pretty sad to see.
There was interference, but by all means, it was a clean victory. After the interference, Vader took him back in the ring, then landed his finisher and got a clean pin. That's bullshit.
Right.
I was just going to say, I'm going to blame officiating on that one, because if there had been any rules being upheld whatsoever, at least there would have been a count out, at least, or maybe a referee's decision or a disqualification or something.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, why is Earl Hebner stopping Vader from going to the top rope, too, at one point? I didn't understand
because it's Earl
that.
Hebner.
I guess.
But then not DQing the match after Stone Cold stuns Bret Hart.
Right. Production-wise, that Steve Austin interference was just, it was not very clear on what was happening, because they had Sid and Austin come out at the same time, and it was just very confusing. The camera work was kind of shitty, so we didn't really see what was happening there. Yeah, but then, things picked up when Pete Lothario got destroyed on that table. So that was a great way to end the show.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. As I said, gentlemen, we faded to black. So let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, please, why don't you go first?
Well, here we are, 97. We got a lot of lowlights already, but I have to say there's just this continuation of fake Razor, fake Diesel. I thought that was the worst part of the show. Wanted to fast forward through it. For the highlight, I'm going to go with the Owen Hart Mankind match. I thought that was a pretty good way to start the show. I thought it was a good match, a little bit of a rushed ending, but I enjoyed it as far as the entertainment factor.
So we're going to parallel on the low light. I'm just sick and tired of the fake Razor, fake Diesel bullshit. So if they're showing up on my screen, there's a very good chance they're going to be the low light, and they were. Highlight, I almost went with the Mankind Owen Hart match, and I pretty much thought that the entire way up until the very end. And I have to give it to Peter Lothario getting powerbombed on the non-gimmick table. That is my highlight. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, we are going to fall in line, Ryan, on our highlights and lowlights. Highlight being specifically the non-gimmicked table. They could have used a gimmicked table and it would have looked great and I would have appreciated it. But the fact that they used a non-gimmicked table,
put it over the top.
So much better that way. Lowlight, fake Razor and fake Diesel, but specifically the fact that they used fake Razor and fake Diesel to officially ruin Furnas and LaFon. Nails in the coffin there for Furnas and LaFon this match. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around January 6th, 1997 for us?
Yes, January 6th, 97, in the Wrestling Observer, the big news is surrounding the new show, Shotgun Saturday Night. As far as the Wrestling Observer readers go, according to Dave Meltzer, the show was largely a flop from the Observer subscribers. I know one of the biggest complaints about the show in general is that it was not available in all markets. It was a syndicated show, so I guess you could kind of compare it to... Do you guys remember the more recent version of Ring of Honor? How it was on like a UPN or a channel like that, local channel. So apparently it was not available in all markets, and people were pretty upset about that. The show took place in a New York nightclub called the Mirage, as we mentioned earlier. It drew 350 fans and a $6,000 house. Ooh. The cost was only $20 to get in.
Well, that's not bad considering what you got to see.
Right. Most readers described it as a risque comedic show that was not funny.
Perfect.
Next week's Shotgun Saturday Night will be at the All-Star Cafe in New York. The following week will be at a bar in San Antonio. Dave Meltzer himself, he described the show as a poorly lit minor league promotion.
ECW.
One thing, that I wanted to point out when I saw this was, did you guys notice the yellow ropes?
Yeah.
And so it almost made me think of the NXT. When they first started doing NXT, it was in a small building and they had the yellow ropes and a darker, darkly lit room. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit. As far as other news, there's not much going on. I know you guys are going to be sad to hear this, but the Grimm twins are gone.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to report that, but
damn,
it's true. It's damn true. They're gone.
The Nürburgring trials are after them, or?
The last piece of news is that Ken Shamrock was at a recent taping in Stockton, and he was mobbed by fans wanting autographs.
Excellent.
And that is all.
Very good news. Always a big fan of Ken Shamrock in the WWF. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review. Let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on January 13th, 1997, with matches featuring Mark Marrow, Crush, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.